Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another uLaw webinar. In today's uLawPractice webinar, we're going to be talking about the business reporting capabilities of the uLawPractice platform. Now, today's webinar is not accredited for any CPD credits. It's going to be a session where I'm able to showcase the product and specifically focus today's webinar on the reporting capabilities of the product, further drilling it down to the business reporting aspects. We're going to touch upon important reports across each and every phase of the life cycle of you using the product, the different components that go behind each of these reporting capabilities, and we'll take some good examples each life cycle or phase of you using the product and kind of talk and have a deeper dive into these individual reports. I kindly request you to use the chat window that you can find on the tool that we use for these webinars so that you can ask your questions, and our support staff would be more than happy to answer these questions during the session at any given time. Once again, request you to mute your phone lines and have fun during the session. Okay? Like every other uLaw webinar, today's webinar has a very specific agenda. We're going to talk about the different reports right across the uLawPractice platform. We talk about over 30 different reports and the deeper dive of these data points that we collect that are your data within the product, and we want you to maximize the value of the information that you can collect by digesting the data inside, right? And we've broken it down for the purposes of today's webinar to give you a broad brush of the different categories under which we have these reports. So if you really look at it, right from the client intake or at the contact level, we've devised reports, including reports that have compliance built into it. We have then matter level reporting. We also actually have reporting capabilities now within the quick view, which allows you to generate both active, closed, and archived matters, as well as generate work in progress reporting that gives you a great plan for what you've set up to do, tasks that are yet to be accomplished that you can now plan to do in your next week. So the work in progress report is a fantastic business report that truly allows you to plan the upcoming week. Also gives you a perspective of what tasks need to be accomplished and what matters need to be dealt with across your clients. Okay? We'll talk about the matter level reports. A good majority of your time is spent on the matter screen where you're docketing, dispersing, accepting retainers, generating invoices. So we really want you to maximize the value of the business reports that you could possibly generate within the matter screen that is specific to the file components of that life cycle. Okay? Then we'll look into one of the important aspects of the product, which is the accounting. Now, uLawPractice, as you already know, or for those who've joined us new, you may appreciate that we are both a legal accounting software as well as a business accounting software. Okay, so what that really means is you can not only use uLawPractice to enter data related to your clients, your files, and handle all of the aspects of the legal compliance of your business. On the other side, you could also use the same uLawPractice platform to enter data or information about office expenses, expenses that are important for you to keep the lights on in your business. And the accounting platform, or the feature within the product, juggles both these different components and provides you a more holistic reporting capability that touches upon both Law Society compliance as well as the compliance with regards to the CRA, for example. Okay, so we're going to talk about those levels of reporting capabilities as well. Then from a calendar perspective, some of the new report capabilities allow you to generate monthly agendas, so a time-based agenda, timesheets, where you could generate work in progress reports that are also employee-based, as we've expanded to now serve solo as well as small to medium legal firms we start to appreciate the need of that growing firm to be able to provide data from the perspective of all the different legal professionals that are involved in that firm. So from a calendar perspective, as a business report, now you're able to not only generate timesheets for the individual owner of the firm, but also for other colleagues within that firm that contribute to the revenue and the service quality of that firm. Okay? And last but not the least, we'll briefly touch upon the question mark, what that really means from a uLaw perspective. Why do we have that question mark? And it's one of those things that is very subliminal. Most of our customers, having matured through the use of the product, have truly understood the value of that question mark. So we're going to try and highlight the importance of that, what that really means to you in your use of the product. And with that, and we'll take questions either along the way or you could wait till the end of the session to ask your questions. Okay? All right, so let's take the next 5 to 7 minutes just to set the context in terms of the different aspects of the reporting capabilities, some high-level examples of the types of reports that you could generate out of the platform. Just to, again, for those who just joined us a bit late, today's session is not accredited for any CPD credits. So this is about business reporting with the uLawPractice, the different reporting capabilities that you have that you can generate, and it is not accredited for any CPD credits. Okay? So from a contact perspective, some of the top 3 reporting aspects that we want to consider and showcase include the client fee book. Okay, at any given time, especially if you're dealing with multiple matters for the same client, this is a fantastic report that gives you an outline of the fee book or the outstanding payment that the client owes, the life cycle of any fees that has been invoices generated, payments made, and if there are any outstanding payments, it also talks about the days of sale. Okay? Source of contact, which is also a compliance document that gives you a great outline of where you're getting your leads from or your contacts from for each of those clients that you now add into the database. This allows you to focus your marketing efforts on those silos of areas that are promoting more leads. And on the other hand, it also gives you a compliance touch to show your auditor from where you're getting these different leads and ensuring that you're just not a referral program. Okay? So the source of contact is a fantastic document that kind of serves 2 purposes here. And then, of course, you have the contact list where you can quickly generate a list of all the contacts, whether that's to generate envelopes or labels for, seasonal greetings or for sending out marketing collateral. Okay, so just some examples just to paint the picture, right? Because as you start to enter all this data that is pertinent to your business, you're using uLawPractice every day to enter this data, and you're providing us all with all this wonderful information. And what we're able to provide is provide meaningful visualizations. And in today's webinar, we're talking about reporting. So these are paper print ready documents that serves its own purpose, right? There's a certain purpose for visual, I would say, correspondence with regards to dashboards. We also have the uLaw app today that gives you all of these graphical visualizations. But then from all pragmatic purposes, whether that's audit readiness, whether it's for you to quickly generate and see a document, old school, these reports, these business reports provide tremendous value in really, I would say, giving you the information, again, that you need to make informed decisions. From a matter perspective, so let's look at some of the examples, and then when we actually get into the demonstration, I'll showcase these to you one at a time. A very, I would say, underused report within the product is the timeline report. Now, this report gives you a complete 360-degree view from start to scratch of every touch point that has been made within that particular matter. Okay, when did that matter get started? When was the retainer accepted, if there was any? When was the first docket or invoice generated? So every single touch point, it gives it to you in a beautiful timeline view that you could actually look at and really generate a document out of it to give yourself a perspective of how long you've spent on a particular matter. You can also do a deeper dive on how long you've spent on a type of matter. Okay. Statement of activity, it's a great document that we recommend that you send to your clients on a periodic basis, at the least at a quarterly basis. This gives your client a complete picture of all the activities that have occurred with the financial touch points associated so that they have complete trust and faith in the prudence with which you're dealing that file. And it also is a fantastic compliance document for you to keep in mind as you start to build that trust and faith with those correspondences. Okay? We talk about legal aid report for our legal professional friends who do legal aid. We do have a specific template that you could use to generate that report that many of our customers do send to the legal aid to even get paid. So we'll briefly talk about the specific legal aid reporting templates. And then you, of course, have matter-level reporting with embedded analytics in it, timesheet that are very specific to that particular matter. So some of the customers may actually ask for a timesheet, especially if there are multiple colleagues of yours collaborating on a specific file. That timesheet may actually be a really good supplement document to an invoice. Okay? And so we'll talk about how you can generate timesheets specific to a matter. Now, the timesheets that you generate from a calendar view are specific to a time period, to an employee, as well as a client. But if you want it specific to a file, you can generate that from the matter. And good examples of other really good customer documents could be bill of cost, and we also have analytics at the accounting level specific to that particular file. Okay? Now, obviously, this is a much bigger list of reports that you could generate. Keep in mind, this includes both the Law Society specific reporting as well as any business level reporting as well. So if you look at from a CRA perspective, you have your HST report right out of the gate. It's an interesting document because uLaw as a platform accommodates and tracks the jurisdictional taxes that you have accepted through payments from your clients, as well as any jurisdictional taxes that you may have paid as a business as part of purchase of a product or service, right? And we amalgamate both the HST paid as well as the HST received to give you a unified view of the HST either that you owe back to the government or the government owes back to you, right? So the HST report is a unified view, as I said, of the taxes that your business should receive or pay the government. Makes it simpler, easier for you to manage your HST payments, and also gives you full control and the information that you need to either defer the HST payment. It also leads to setting up those timely payments from your bank. So it's an amazing report that you could always generate to keep tab of that. Well, from there you move into, let's say from a Law Society compliance perspective, you have your journals, ledgers of both your trust account as well as your general account. Okay? Now the expense ledger, just similar to the HST, is an amalgamated report. So it brings in together both expenses that have incurred by your office on behalf of your client, which are otherwise called as disbursements, as well as the expenses incurred by your business from a running the office or running the shop, right? So we do a much I would say a broader webinar specific to disbursements in a, we actually just did that a couple of weeks earlier. It's a CPD session, and you can check that out on our YouTube channel. But the expense ledger pretty much brings in together these two different aspects of it. Then from running a business, right, as part of generating and running reports, one of the most key, I would say, two documents that every business generates at the end of the year, of their business year, is the balance sheet and the trial balance. So the balance sheet really gives you a fantastic view of your assets, liabilities, and overall profit or loss of the business. And trial balance, of course, has a much deeper dive into the individual accounts that are involved. uLaw generates that for you as well. So from a business perspective, it's a very important, one of the most important accounting reports that many times we as business owners may actually outsource it to an accountant or a bookkeeper who can do that for you. But keep in mind, if the data is right, as long as you've managed the sanity of the data and the data entry into the system, uLaw as a product has the capability to provide at that same single cost of ownership of the uLaw product. It gives you the capability to generate these documents at a click of a button. It further percolates to the revenue, expense, profit and loss statements, so you can generate that as well individually. Both from a compliance standpoint, or more importantly from a business standpoint, you can generate pro bono reports, and we'll talk about that. It's very important, and one of the unsung heroes of reporting pro bono, because it really, as a good Samaritan, or maybe as a business strategy, that you may offer pro bonos to your clients, but it is important that you have a way of measuring and tracking it, and that's exactly what uLaw does for you as our customer, that it tracks and measures and provides it to you in a report that you can easily consume. It talks about the top individuals who've taken in your pro bono time, where have you spent it, etc. Another very important document, important for your business, is the invoice balance. Okay? The invoice balance document, again, combines both trust and general related payments. Talks about if you have missed out on doing any pending trust transfers from a trust account to a general account, which is very important for you to make money as well, especially when trust money is involved. Or if there's no trust involved, it also gives you the view of any outstanding client payment that you're yet to accept from the client. So that motivates you to pick up the phone and call these clients and provide them a gentle reminder to make the payment on time. Compliance documents, yet again, expense book, fee book. This really talks about the revenue as well as the expenses that you've incurred in a time period. Another perspective of the invoice balance would be your aging document, especially your aging receivables. Now, the aging document, as you probably already know, is a business document, but it highlights the amount owing from each client or a certain date range bucket. So it's great for you to know from an invoice balance report that, Mr. XYZ owes you $100, but the aging receivable gives you a totally different perspective of that same data. It tells you that Mr. XYZ owes you that $100 over 90 days, right? One is, the first document talks about the customer and the amount. The aging receivables gives you a perspective, a new perspective of the over time. What's the amount of time that they've taken to pay you, right? Because if then you have interest that you need to add to that invoice, you may do so. And there are many more reports that I could talk about, but I certainly want to get into demonstrating this rather than just talking about it. But hopefully this allows us to, paint a picture about the importance of these reports, and more importantly, the importance that you need to appreciate and understand that you already have in your uLaw product these amazing capabilities. Okay? And we touched upon this earlier on. From a calendar perspective, we often talk about how important it is for legal professionals to manage time, and exactly in that calendar where you manage your time, how we inserted these important reports. You could have your daily, weekly, scheduled reports. This allows many of our clients to plan their week ahead, both for themselves as a sole practitioner, as well as for their firm if they're growing to be a small, medium law firm or a legal firm. Okay? Work in progress, timesheets, Now, the certain timesheets also have the appropriate dollars associated with it. So it talks about, sole practitioner ABC having spent 5 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours on each of these different matters and clients, but you can also generate reports which says Mr. ABC has spent 5 hours, that's worth $2,000, 3 hours, that's worth $1,400. So it also gives you the financial impact of the time spent. After all, time is money, and the timesheet exactly pinpoints that. If your client would like a summary overview of the effort that's been put in, you could generate both a client and service level summary report that pretty much outlines over a date range, or you could do it for all of your clients, the overall summary of the service provided by individuals in your firm and the specific clients that have enjoyed that service over a date range. Okay. This also gives you as a business owner, as a growing business owner, full control and visibility on the key players in your firm. Who are the colleagues and individuals who are bringing revenue, who are the individuals who are capable of bringing revenue but aren't hitting their targets yet, right? It gives you a better way to plan your overall firm's revenue strategy. And I'm glad that pretty much brings it to the end of the slide share. So with another 35 minutes, or give or take 30 to 35 minutes that we have today's session, I want to use this as a segue and jump into utilizing my practice account, which I always do for our webinars. And I'm going to be using our pretty famous legal professional, fictitious legal professional, Mr. Roger Moore. Okay, and I hope you're able to see my screen. This allows me to, this is just a playground account of the same uLawPractice that you as a customer may already have access to. If those who've joined us are not customers, as the slide share did share, we do offer a 30-day no obligation trial for you to explore the product and really like it before you buy it. And we do everything we possibly can to get you familiar with the product and support you through that trial process, okay, and give you all the information that you need to make an informed decision. All right, so let me get started with talking about these individual reporting capabilities that's built into the product. And I'm going to start with our first example that we looked at, which was the contacts. Now, as you know, there are 7 different menu items in the product, like the 7 days of the week, right? Now, the dashboard and the analytics especially are more graphical in how they communicate the certain data points and the information. Okay, so let's just take a look at that real quick, just so you appreciate the difference between the visualization from an analytics perspective and how the same data is then visualized from a standard reporting perspective. For a great example, let's look at our fee book by category. Okay, so let's say for this quarter, or maybe not a great example, let's for the entire year, I really want to understand what areas of practice has my firm been generating revenue from. Okay, maybe I'm a law firm that offers small claims, POA, etc. As you can pretty much see, almost 33% of my revenue has come from small claims. Okay, about 18% has come from criminal, and I have another 18.5% from family, and then I have expenses. Likewise, I could have, so this is a very graphical visualization. I could have my expense chart by category for the whole year at a click of a button. Keep in mind the data points are all based on the information that you have entered into the system over a period of time. As you continue to run your business using uLaw, you have started to inherit all of this data in the system. Okay, and that's the data that we're using to give back these visualizations to help you make informed business decisions. So overall, this year, you've spent almost 28% of all your expenses towards printing and stationery. About 24% is another category called office supplies, and you have about 23% expenses on client account, which really means that you can recover that. The hope is that you can. You have miscellaneous, about 8% on your LSO fees, etc. Right? So this is a visual representation. Now the same information is captured, let's say, in an expense book. Okay? So if I were to generate my expense book for the entire year, and this divides it by category as well. This is the format that we're talking about in today's webinar. The format of a business reporting in the school of a PDF document or an Excel sheet that gives it to you in this format. Okay, so here it was more visual at a very high level. This is more granular because it breaks it down then by expense with HST, right, over a date range. And in many cases, many of these documents, especially compliance documents in nature, do still require you to generate it in a very specific format. Okay? The data, nevertheless, is still the same. But how you represent this data is what it comes down to. Okay? Now that I've set that context, and hopefully I've driven home the point of what we're going to be generating over the next 25 minutes, I'll start with the contacts, which is one of the first data entry points within the product, because this is where you're going to intake your client. Okay. So I'm going to take a quick example of this particular company that Roger Moore has worked with, A1 Fills Incorporated. Okay, so there are multiple matters that this particular client has dealt with, and I could choose any specific client, but just for purposes of the demo, I'm just going to go ahead and choose that. Okay, and if you noticed, we made some changes, and we've added a few, I would say, hotkeys or quick access points to certain commonly used menu options within the product. So if you wanted to generate any compliance-related reports specific to the client intake, so for example, if the auditor walks in and says, all right, I want you to show me the source of contact, and it's a compliance document, you know where to go to click and generate that source of contact. And you can do that for the entire year, no problems. Okay? But as always, we have all of our documents that you can generate, including documents that are specific to the life cycle as well as reports under our document generation. If you look at our reports, you have the fee book, source of contact, aging, and a newly introduced report called Invoice List, which generates all the invoices that you have pretty much generated for this specific client. So let's have a look at our source of contact report. Okay, there you go. So starting from 1st of January till end of the year, so till now, based on the data that you have provided uLaw, and again, taking this as an example, this particular practice account, it tells us that almost 28% of the contacts have arrived from family as a source of referral. Now the question is, how did you enter this data? Where did this data get captured? Now if I were to edit this particular contact, at the type of entering or intaking a new client, okay, we do ask you to provide us with a source of contact. Okay, so I'll make it simpler. Let's say I add a new contact. I'm going to add this to the clients group. And I'm going to say Mr. Okay, Joseph Robert. An important piece of data element that we capture, and it's not mandatory because, sometimes you may not know how this person got to know your law firm, right? So maybe it's word of mouth. It really didn't strike them yet. That's how they got to know you. But it always comes back, and you can always go back and edit this. But this is an amazing opportunity for you to enter that information. So let's say they did look at your you know, advertisement, and this is alphabetically arranged. This could be word of mouth. This could be a Law Society referral, whatever it may be. So this particular data element is what is captured for us to report upon. So if you look at Law Society referral, currently says 7.14%. Let me just add this client just for the purposes of demonstrating the reporting capability. As you've included Mr. Joseph Robert as yet another client as a source of contact being the Law Society referral, as how you should expect, that number is going to increase. Okay. And once this disappears, I'm going to jump into generating that document once again. Again, I can go into document generation, click on reports, and then click on source of contact, or I could just do it right from compliance. We just go to source of contact, and I will do it for the whole year. Now, if you were to contrast, you're going to see the Law Society referral going up to 10.34% compared to 7.14% just a few minutes back. Okay, so that's how data is getting aggregated behind the scene, and this is how we're going to be able to show you what that data means to your business. Okay, now if you can see, we also give you certain contacts or clients that you at the point of intaking the client did not know the source of contact, and we track that as well, because it's important for you to have the not categorized as close to zero as possible. So further down, we've given you the list of names for which we don't know the source of contact. So let's take Amy Jackson. So you can search that up in our, and I'm going to just type in Amy, and you can choose to contact, and let's say Amy called you and then she gave you that information. You can always go back and add to it. So once you've added this, of course, as you should expect, this not categorized would now reduce to 10. So it not only adds, but it can also accommodate any deletions as the situation may be. Okay? And I hope this was clear. I can generate that report once again, just to make this a little more interesting and hopefully not boring, just to give you 3 different flavors. We had a baseline report at 7.4% with 11 not categorized, and then we had an increase in the Law Society referral to 10% with the not categorized still being 11. Now you're going to have a third flavor where you're definitely going to see this increase, but you're going to see the not categorized decrease. There you go. That increased to 13%. That decreased to 10. Okay? So we want you to have the leap of faith that as data gets added into the system, the appropriate aggregation happens behind the scene, and the appropriate report reflects that information. Okay? All right. What else can I show you from a contact perspective? Client fee book. It's important for you to notice, under the compliance, we've also kind of given you a kind of best practice of the type of report that you probably want to generate for a certain time period. So let me just click this again. So if you look at the client intake, we know it's as and when it happens. As soon as the client intake happens, you have to do a conflict screening. It's right there. It's not a report, but it's certainly a document that you want to keep in handy to indicate as part of your conflict screening report as to how you went about the conflict search. Okay? Then we're going to generate the client fee book, which is something that you may want to generate. Again, you can do it as often as you like, but we recommend at a minimum you do it once a quarter. Okay? So let's do the client fee book. Just going to hit the download button and hit download. And in, I would say, less than 3 seconds, you have this report. So for Amy Jackson, there isn't much information because we were in the Amy Jackson file. Now let me go back to a file that I know has a lot of information in it, which probably makes a lot of sense. Let me choose A1 Field Sync. Now for specifically to this client, let me do the client fee book, and you probably will appreciate this a little bit more. There you go. So it has all the information. It has the tax number, the date that you've generated this document. Now what we do is we break this down or group it by the different matters that were dealt with for this particular client. So the client is A1 Fields, but uLaw tells you that you have multiple matters that you've dealt with. You've had a slip and fall matter for this client, paralegal work, you had a small claims matter, and you also had a family matter to deal with. Now, it's important for you to keep in mind, though it's the same client, when you look at compliance, right from file numbering to ledgers, it's by the matter or it's by the file itself. So very similarly, we have this particular document, right, which talks about the overall invoice balance specific to this client, but broken down by matter. It tells you the total invoice, total paid, the invoice balance, the pending trust transfer. It tells you clearly either you've done it in real life and not informed uLaw, which also is a problem because we need to be informed accordingly so that we as your bookkeeping software can adjust the ledgers and provide you again the reports in a timely manner. In addition to the pending trust transfer, the client owes you $22.60. Again, the client may have already paid you, you may have already deposited it into your bank account, but you haven't informed it. Worse, you did not even recognize that that was the amount owing, and that's where this report kicks in. $22, again, every penny counts, but if you were to compare this, this is of course more important. So that's where you're going to pick up the phone, call the individual involved in A1 Fields, and really talk about, getting that $2,400 back paid, right? And then you have, of course, the pending trust transfer from the family matter, another $1,300. So it gives you a great summary as well. This report, of course, allows you to take actions. So let's take an example of the slip and fall. Let's say that you recognize that you've already got this and you've done the transfer. You would go in right away, right? Jump into the matter for this particular client. And as you can see, it tells you right away at the top, A1 Fields, and there are 4 files. Okay? And let us jump into the slip. Which one was that? Slip and fall? Okay. Let's go into the slip and fall. And this is where I'm going to slightly be selfish in introducing the concept of the question mark. So if I were to click the question mark, uLaw clearly outlines to you in red the actions that you can take to make sure that the real-life transactions and uLaw's bookkeeping are met. So it clearly tells you that there are 2 red items. Either we don't know if this 883 already being accepted, or even worse, you haven't done it in real life either. Okay? So let's say you want to do that transfer, and let's assume that you've already done it in the month of March. Okay? Because it happened right away, but you just didn't tell us. You can choose the transactions. We again keep you trust compliant, which means that you can only transfer the appropriate amount, moving it from your trust account into your general account. And let's say this was an electronic fund transfer. You can choose the date, backdate this, very important. If you've done this pretty much the same month, you can backdate that as well. Okay. You can also generate a Form 9A, which is an important report. Every time that you do an electronic fund transfer from a trust account to a general account, there's this Form 9A that needs to be filled out. Okay. Also change the date. gives you the information, you sign this, and you're good to go. That's really the importance of these reports, that it does gives you the information to make informed actions or decisions. Okay, so from a contact perspective right away, we looked at source of contact, that's for the entire database of contacts. We looked at client fee book specific to this particular client that you're dealing with, A1 fields. And we looked at aging. So I could do it specifically to this client at the aging report, and you can do that for your entire business, which we'll get into later. But the aging report tells you very important information. Now in this previous report, when you looked at it, you did not know over what date period has this money not been paid, right? So if you look at the fence issue, you knew that was $2,400 outstanding, but only when you did the aging do you appreciate that 24 Once again, I apologize for the experience. I was not quite sure what happened. I think Join Me may have bumped us out of the webinar. I think that's where we had a bit of a disruption. This is going to be recorded and available, and we'll make sure that this is better edited before we upload it into our YouTube channel. Okay, so again, I do apologize for the experience, and I would kindly request if you can dial back in those who are actually using a computer. All right, so where we left off when everything was just right was we finished the quick view and we looked at the different reports that you can generate out of a quick view. And now I'm going to jump into the reports that you can generate out of the matters. We looked at the timeline that gives you specifically each and every time-specific points of the effort that you've put in within that matter, starting with the May 4th, even up till the payment that we just received on April 5th. So it gives you a beautiful timeline graph of every touch point that has happened in that matter. And again, the reports are right under document generation. And then you have your legal aid report. And we just generated that legal aid report. This gives it to you in a format that is acceptable by the legal aid for the work that you've done, especially if you're marking that matter as a legal aid matter. Okay, has it in a specific way that accommodates the date, service, the hours that were spent on it. It has the disbursements that were spent on that particular legal aid matter. If there are multiple individuals involved, it also gives a summary of the effort put in by these individual legal professionals. Has a separate description for the disbursements that were involved. So if there was a fax that was part of this matter, it's included with the appropriate taxes. Okay, so the legal aid report is also a very important document that many of our customers use, especially when they're dealing with the legal aid nature of the matter. Then we spoke about the settlement account statements and how important it was many times to assess if the work put in and the numbers sometimes match with the reconciliation. The settlement accounts gives you a perspective from start to scratch, or I think it's been a long day, from start to end of the different touch points that have existed in the matter. So to give you an example, it gives you the overall professional services rendered. Okay, so it talks to you about starting 4th January, all the legal fees or work that was put in. It talks about the different disbursements, the retainers that were involved. It talks about any deposits, so money coming into the trust account. You've had 5 different retainers across different date ranges. Any settlements that you received for this particular matter. Invoices that have been generated for this matter. So you've got 3 invoices ranging from the 8th of January to the 20th of March, including the HST and the legal fees involved, with the invoice number involved as well, right? You know, remember we had the court fee of $45.20, or the fax that was made of part of the invoice 3074, and the invoice payments that were made from trust. So every trust transfer that was made out of the trust account, including the 830 that we did on the 22nd of March, any payments, including the 2260 that we just did today, and a final summary of the work and the monies involved in this overall matter. Okay? So this is your settlement statement. That is a very important report specific to this matter. And the last report that I'll highlight specifically from a file or a matter perspective is the timesheet. So you can do this for the entirety of the complete matter itself. So if you really want for the specific matter, the timesheet involved, including various individuals that were part of that legal fee structure. So it talks about the date. You can also generate the time period spent on it. So 30 minutes were spent on it. Or if you don't want this, you can actually change your settings, and this particular would not show up. It talks about the description, the flat rate nature of this docket. If there's billable time, it talks about the overall time and bill. who was it specifically rendered by, the total billable hours in this matter, estimated hours, and billable hours. So you had estimated 8 hours and 50 minutes, but you've actually billed an hour extra or more than what you had estimated. And also, it divides it by who the service was provided by. Provided by Mr. Roger Moore, then Mr. Bruce, and there was also a flat rate. Okay? So once again, from a business reporting standpoint, we looked at the contact level reports, we looked at reports from a quick view standpoint, and then we're starting to look at the reports that you could generate under a specific file or a matter. Okay? Now let's get into with another, I know we're running a little bit late, but I'm just going to cover the calendar first and then finally finish it off with the accounting. So under the calendar, we looked at timesheet being a very important report. So let me generate a timesheet by employee, and I can do this for the entire year. And parallel, I'll also generate the client's revenue summary. So this, if you remember, we mentioned about not only capturing the time, but also capturing the dollars involved in the time spent. Because time is money, and each and every individual has their certain per hour rate. So here's the timesheet by employee, assuming there's Anna, Hannah, and others involved in this particular legal firm. By date range, you have this that Anna has spent over 3 hours and 30 minutes. You have Hannah spending an hour almost. And what's interesting is the summary itself. So it really tells you Mr. Magneto had spent an hour. So Roger Moore has spent over 79 hours. Okay, you have the estimated and billable, Wolverine, Hannah, and Janet Craig. Okay. Now if you look at the client summary with the revenue on it, this gives you a different perspective. It tells you each and every client, the estimated time or the estimated hours and the billable hours, and what that means to as a revenue to you and your firm. So if you look at A1 Phil's, almost 18 hours and 49 minutes, resulting in about $5,000 of revenue. For a total revenue over this date range of $26,000. Okay? So the reports under your calendar are both timeline based as well as translate time as money and gives you from a perspective of the dollars involved as well. Okay? So that's right under calendar, under action, and you have all these documents right under that. Now let me jump into the accounting, the different documents that you can generate. So we spoke about the balance sheet, and I'll just generate that. Let me just do a detailed balance sheet. And you can change this to the previous year if you like. You can go back, date this. I'm just going to quickly generate the balance sheet for the year 2018. Okay? Let me quickly just close these reports, and there it is. In a matter of 10 seconds, we were able to generate the balance sheet. This clearly outlines the assets, the different assets as of this date for this firm, okay, by bank, by cash, any receivables. So this firm also had some goodwill, some fixed assets. So overall, the total assets value is so much. We all wish it was that much, but this is a playground account, and we'll gratefully be ambitious of getting here. And then comes your liabilities of both your payables, any borrowings, the payroll that you have to run if you have employees in your firm, liabilities from perspective of taxes. So this is where we capture HST payable. If you've had any long-term borrowings, we capture that as well. Any capital injection that was made into the firm, including the capital injected as well as drawings. Okay? So the balance sheet, if you look at it, well, let me get to the summary of it. There you go. It talks about the assets, liabilities, capital revenue, and the expenses involved, and gives you a final summary of the retained earnings, both either in positive or negative, depending on the situation. Okay, so this is typically what an accountant or someone who's working with you as a bookkeeper would generate for you based on all this information, plugging it in. But if you can provide this information within uLaw, this is one of the most important business reports that we generate at a click of a button. If you want it for a specific category, you can do that as well. You can do a summary, just the summary itself, if you want to do your balance sheet on a monthly basis because you want to keep tab of it every month, you can do that as well. Okay? We spoke about how this is an amalgamation of the revenue, expense, and if I were to generate a profit and loss, that is exactly what you would look at. So for this particular year, the profit and loss statement, which is something that our clients generate more often, gives a combination of the revenue as well as the expense. So let's take a look at that real quick. So here's the revenue based on both legal work and any recovery of expenses, divided by the area of practice. And this is exactly what we looked at when we did our analytics, which gives you the revenue fee book by category, right? So this is really the revenue or fee book by category. Also captures the expenses, the salaries, any consultancy, office expenses, and this is exactly what we did from an analytics perspective, which was expenses by category. But this is a different visualization, and it's a visualization in the format of a report that's printable and viewable. So it talks about the total income, total expense, and summarizes the net profit for this particular date range. Okay? So that was balance sheet, and we looked at the profit and loss